I am Ann Johans. I'm an Extension Program Specialist with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. And I'm happy to be here today to talk with you about our website that is the home for our farm management materials. As the coordinator of the website, I'm familiar with all our materials and the experts behind them. So, our goals today are really to share with you what Ag Decision Maker is, who uses it, the most used resources we have available on the website, and then talk about some of our most recent updates, and then some things that you might want to watch for in the coming months. The concept for Ag Decision Maker was developed by Don Hofstrand, who's a retired farm management field specialist who was housed in north central Iowa over 25 years ago. The idea then was that there was a need to have reliable resources out in the field when talking with producers and ag business professionals to help them make informed farm management decisions. And to make good decisions, you need to have all the information available, right? And so it started out as a printed handbook and it has grown to be one of the top three most used ISU extension websites. Here in this image, you'll see our homepage as it was here just a few weeks ago. We release new updates the middle of each month and always post them right on the homepage. And so it's easy to see what is new and updated. And then we send out an announcement of new materials through our email list. So I'll put in a plug that if you're not yet on our email list, this is a great opportunity to join that list. And after viewing the video today, on this screenshot of the homepage with the updates from November, it includes our newsletter with crop and livestock outlook, as well as other relevant topics for farm management. And in addition to the newsletter, we update multiple fact sheets or information files, as well as decision tool spreadsheets, or add videos as an additional resource for our users. And so those are all available right in the center of the homepage when they are first updated. Along the left-hand side, you can see an entire section under Hot Topics. And so this is where we link to things that are popular throughout the year. For example, our ag market economist, who many of you are familiar with, Chad Hart, provides a short outlook video each month. And you can always find a link to the most recent one in that list. And so they're usually about 15 minutes long and just cover the latest reports or things impacting the market that week. Along the top of the page in the gray menu, there are several different subject matter areas available on the website. And so within crops, livestock, whole farm, business development, cooperatives, and energy, there's a wide selection of information. If there's a specific topic, you can look within a topic area. So let's say you're interested in what information we have on crop insurance. And so you can look under crops. There's an entire section devoted to crop insurance. Or if there's something that you're looking for, but you're not sure where to look, then of course there is a search bar and it works really well to search within the site. So we have some contract information. So let's say you're doing a contract within parties. Maybe you don't know to look under business development. You can for sure use that search bar. Looking for livestock cost of production, you can search under the search bar and that'll find those things for you right there. Then if you scroll down, though, on the homepage, just know that we always try and pull in additional resources from partners at our Center for Agricultural Law and Taxation. There's a national ag economics newsletter titled Choices that we highlight often when it comes out. It's a quarterly newsletter, and then the newsletter from the Center for Agricultural and Rural Development. And so we include some information from those partners and then also have links to our website financial supporters. And we update throughout the month. There's also a link to our blog where we'll post short snippets, highlight certain things that might have kind of a shorter shelf life that we want to make sure to get some information out there. And so that's another resource to look for. Our newsletter that comes out every month is just one piece to promote the changes on the website. And so the example newsletter shown here usually has 3 to 5 articles each month that fall under kind of our main categories. And it's content that you will regularly see reprinted in other ag media outlets. So just know it may have started there, and there might be some additional resources that go along with that article. But it also on the website, you can access all our past newsletters, along with there are over 420 information files, 200 decision tools, close to 100 teaching activities. If you would ever need a short activity to use with a workshop or with coworkers, we often get a lot of ag teachers that use the materials in the teaching activities, as well as videos and links to additional resources. We archive a lot of the webinars that we have provided over the years. Those are archived under their topic areas, as well as under one page that lists all the videos. And then also, I mentioned already, you can follow our updates either through the email sign up. We have a blog and a Twitter feed that are all ways to access this material. So I bring up this visual, and I know it's very busy, but it's something that really lends itself to why we provide the information that we do. And so this producer decision calendar, it's just that great visual of the decision cycle that egg producers see each year. And again, I'm not going to get into the specific details of the image, but it's to give insight that agricultural decisions are a year-round process and a multi-year cycle, right? And so our goal has always been to create and provide succinct materials for specific decisions that producers, landowners, and ag business professionals address every day of the year. Over half of Iowa farmland is owned by someone who does not currently farm. So just think about that. We're trying to reach both producers and those landowners who might not directly be involved in agriculture. So of that, that over the half that don't farm, 34% is owned by owners with no farming experience at all, and 24% is owned by retired farmers, and may have retired last year or 20 years ago, right? And so once you've retired from something, you can quickly kind of forget some of the pieces that go into those decisions. And so, if we look at landowners of Iowa farmland who don't live in the state, there's a recent survey, the Farmland Ownership Survey, shows that 20% of land is owned by someone who is not a full-time Iowa resident. Most often, those are folks who may have inherited land or potentially looked at investments of Iowa farmland. And so, of that 20%, 70% again have no farming experience. And so, those statistics really show the importance of providing access to materials for those in production agriculture, as well as the landowners who need to better understand the decisions their tenants are making. And it really provides the materials on the website provide a tool for those conversations. And so, if the tenant needs some information to help support, the production decisions they're making, some resources to help in that conversation, that's definitely a way the materials on the website are used. And then I just want to highlight, kind of go through the year of some of our more heavily used publications so that you're aware of, if you see this information, know where it came from, and maybe to have a better understanding of how you can use it, or how it is being used. And so we start out in January every year with our estimated cost of crop production. There's also a partner publication for livestock that's updated kind of in a middle part of the year. It's not necessarily always in January, but our cost of crop production is published every January. This image here is just a summary of that more detailed publication. But just know these estimates provide a benchmark that's often used in financial planning and crop marketing programs that help producers determine production cost and break even levels, because we really need to know our break even levels when we're determining our marketing plan goals, right? And so in this publication, that's a summary of the more detailed budgets. The full publication is that tool again between tenants and landowners to really go through what are the various crop inputs, right, that are needed to grow a crop every year. Sometimes when you're not involved in production agriculture, we have to put on that teacher hat to say that we do need to put in, our needs for fertilizer, what are crop insurance costs, all the things that are kind of not just the seed. And so to be able to kind of have that list to go from is really, really helpful. And then along with, as I mentioned, the decision tools that partner with a lot of our information files. And so I have an example here of one that is pretty heavily used that is basically a redo in a different format of our estimated cost of crop production. And so this is the corn following corn budget that has the averages from our publication, but then it allows somebody to apply it to an individual situation. And so each year, this is updated with those averages from the publication. And the user can then start with the ISU averages, adjust up and down, perhaps on the machinery cost, or if they do know their crop insurance cost per acre, they can put in their actual cost, but maybe there's some things that they don't know. And so they can start with those averages to at least give them more information than they had before. Or if somebody does know a lot of the details of their operation, and maybe they want to use this to do some projections on what changes might be, right? Let's look at what a change in my cash rent would do to my break-even cost. If I want to add acres or subtract acres, right, from my that enterprise, that they can use this tool for that. And so there's an example tab you can see at the very bottom, or there's a blank tab. And so there's a couple different options. And then the bottom of this spreadsheet right here, we'll scroll down and you can see it summarizes all of those input costs by acre, by bushel, and then for all acres based on what was entered at the top of the spreadsheet. And so the other way that a user could use this is, that you can make those adjustments on the fly and see the impact, or you could save it so that you can compare to year. We've kept these Excel based. It allows the user, if you're comfortable using Excel, we protect these decision tools, but they're not password protected. I'm okay saying that. If you're comfortable with Excel and you think that, you want to add something in there, adjust it a certain way, then that's your choice. If it doesn't work, that once you've unprotected it, that's kind of you're taking it on your own to make sure that that tool is working correctly. But just know it is an option. But we do protect them just so that those formulas aren't impacted when you're working on it online. But that then you can save this tool and refer back to it. And a lot of some of them do provide some really useful information to use year after year. So within these are our cost of crop production ones, but there's also unique tools that combine the various enterprise budgets so that you could look at some changes over a multi-year period. And so to look at, different types of rotations and the profitability of what those rotations might be for your operation. And so some really great ways to use that material. Then, one of the struggles that producers often face when pulling together their financial data or doing some projections or analysis for a farm operation is that they may not have all the pieces they need. Perhaps if you're new to farming or looking at a new piece of ground, you're working with a new lender. In these situations, the information on Ag Decision Maker becomes a really good place to start. And so we provide summary data from other resources too. So we have our surveys as well as data from the USDA National Ag Statistics. And so, for example, this one with the county yield information is released the end of February each year. But it can be a little bit challenging to find just what you're looking for. And so we provide it in a really handy publication. Do a little bit of additional analysis, though, and really look at what those county yields have done over the past 10 years. What's the highest been, the lowest, so that people can kind of see what that range has been over the last 10 years. Because when we're looking at making changes, we want to look at, not just the best year, we want to look at what's the range. And so this puts that information right there. And we do this with price information as well. And so we update the yield information the day it is posted, the day it's released from USDA NASS. We're ready to publish this as well shortly after that comes out. And then our price file information, we update that every month when that report from USDA is published. But the most downloaded publication that Iowa State University happens to be our custom rate survey. So this survey is extremely popular both within our state and across the Midwest because machinery costs don't necessarily change a lot when you cross state lines, right? When we talk about inputs and productivity and soils and land, that changes when we cross into other states. But machinery cost can kind of cross over. And so we do get a lot of use both within and outside our state for this. And so this survey, if you're not aware, is released every March. And if you, I will put in a plug, if you do custom work or hire custom work done, it is actually a kind of a difficult list to build. And so if you're interested in providing some input on this survey, I welcome your information and we would be happy to add you to that list. But it comes out, the survey itself is sent out in February. The survey is released then, the results are released in March. And it asks over 150 different operations end up in the final report. The survey instrument has a few more on there. They don't always make it into the final publication if we don't get enough responses. And for those who answer that survey, it's a very large survey, but we only ask you to answer the operations that you're familiar with. And so if you do custom baling, but you don't do anything else, like you would just answer the line on custom mailing. And so you can see that the results by operation really vary, but that is why. So a lot of people respond to that, but it crosses a lot of different operations. And so for each type of work that's reported on the survey, it shows the average rate, the median, and the range. And when the survey is sent out, they do an estimate or a projection on what fuel costs are going to be for the year 2023. And so we're asking those respondents to answer the survey based on that projected fuel price, their considerations on labor. And so the survey serves as a guide, but it's always important to note that actual custom rates you'll see may vary according to the availability in the given area, timeliness of the work done, the operator's skill, field size, shape, crop conditions. I mean, there's so many factors, to always make sure that you consider. And also maybe there's additional performance characteristics from the machine. If it's a basic machine, but it has an additional piece that maybe does two operations at once or provides some quality level, then that's probably, things that justify that it's not just the average. And any custom rate should always cover the cost to own and operate that piece of equipment, right? So the machinery, the operator. And so just know that that is the goal of any custom rate. And so along with this survey, though, there's an entire section of the Ag Decision Maker website that's devoted to machinery management. And so if we get questions on operations that aren't listed on the survey, there is actually a calculator that looks at estimating the cost of machinery. So, based on size, usage, that you can actually, fill out a spreadsheet to see what is your actual cost to run that equipment, enter in a specific labor rate, that sort of thing. And so it's a really great tool. We also have information on field capacity, days suitable for field work. We summarize data from USDA NASS. It's a special request to summarize days suitable for fieldwork over 20, 30, 50 years. That's also available on the website. And then also some resources for sharing equipment. So if you're going to do a joint machinery ownership, or let's say that you're using somebody's equipment for, you borrow their equipment back and forth, like maybe they borrow something of yours, and how does that even out, right? So based on the acres and usage to actually do that work for you. And so there's a lot of information specifically to machinery management within the website too. So then I did mention that Ag Outlook video. And so just want to highlight again, it's on that left side under Hot Topics is the direct link to the video. But then also it's embedded, there's an entire page devoted to Outlook. And so on that page, the resources on that page include tools that are updated monthly. So we have our summary of USDA's cash and soybean prices, and then there is a projected season average price calculator. And so that uses some data from USDA on percent marketed every month and the monthly prices to actually look at what's the projected price. We just updated that to look at the projected price for 2023. And so you can use that tool to kind of see what the projections are. And then there's several profitability models for corn, crops, and livestock. There's some energy models that compare crop costs and energy costs. And so there's a lot of information there. If you're familiar with the Midwest Climate Hub, they have a lot of really useful information on some weather outlook. And so we include all of that information too at the bottom of this page. So a lot of useful information right here. The next, probably most popular thing on our website is our leasing information. And so I'm going to go through a couple different things specific to leasing. And I would say that the Iowa State University Extension's leasing information is second to none. Our survey provides more detail than any other state's able to. We really try and improve and strengthen the relationships on farmland leasing within our state. And so the materials here are used year round, and they support both one-on-one relationships, between tenants and landowners, but also a lot of the programs that we do throughout the year. And so while the most heavily used is our annual cash rental rate survey, and I'll get into some details on that. But other materials on this page include publications on best practices in farmland leasing, lease forms and supplements. So if you're looking at implementing conservation practices, looking at adding tile or some, larger capital improvement on a piece of rented ground, how that could maybe be shared, or if the tenant is willing to put that in, how they might recoup costs if that input or investment if they haven't observed all the usefulness of it, that useful life. And so some supplements for that, additional publications and decision tools. And so you can actually enter in some projected prices and specific land information to look at what estimated rental rates could be based on different formulas for both cash rent, crop share, or flexible farmland leases. And so for any questions related to farmland leasing, this page is where you should start. And so we're going to take a closer look now at the cash rent specifically. And if you're not familiar with the Iowa State University Cash Rental Rate Survey, this survey started in 1994, and prior to that, you can see sometimes you'll see in some historic data, there is data available for a few select counties that were doing a county level survey prior to that. And just know it is an opinion survey asking values across the county for high, medium, and low quality farmland. It includes yields for corn and soybeans are provided on the survey instrument to use as a guide for those quality levels when someone's responding to the survey. And then that same information is published in the final report. This survey is sent out after March 1st. That's when leases in the state begin. And so it's sent out March 1st of each year, and the results are released typically by the middle of May. And here, this is the last page of the actual survey. It shows results by crop reporting district, but the full publication has results for all counties in Iowa. And sometimes I will just share that we do find, responses are really, really important on these surveys so that we can publish these. And so I really encourage if you're on these survey lists to respond. We do have counties sometimes we don't get enough responses from, and so we'll do a really good analysis and compare counties, neighboring counties, counties that are similar in productivity or quality, CSR2 values, responses, so that we can still report at least combine neighboring counties so that they can still have a report released. So that's something unique to this survey too. And so in the top section of this page too, just want to highlight, we provide some information so folks can kind of gauge where their particular farm might land based on the average county yield for corn and soybeans, along with the average corn suitability rating or CSR2 index. And so we provide those at the county level so you can kind of determine, if you might be above or below what the average is for the county. And as I mentioned, with over half the land in Iowa under some form of rental agreement, this map shows the data at the county level. And so the percent of land rented, it ranges from under a fourth in those lower tiers of counties, and then the northeast corner as well. And then there's higher levels of land under rental agreements in that north central region. This data is really good at sparking conversation and questions and it's based on data from the USDA Census of Ag. And it is something that we will look for. New data will be released this in spring 2024. And so we'll make sure to update this information on our website and kind of look more in depth at what the changes have been since this was released back in 2019. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight on farmland leasing is this table that is often used in flexible lease agreements that just looks at what cash rent as a percent of crop value and crop revenue have been for the past 10 years. And so we update this every spring with average cash rents and then do a calculated analysis of what gross crop value is based on average yields in Iowa for corn and soybeans, as well as the average cash price as reported for the months of October through December. The gross crop revenue adds in if there were any USDA payments. It pulls in data from the RMA on crop insurance payments. And so flexible lease agreements have grown in use and interest. We get more questions just kind of looking at what a flex lease might mean versus a crop share. And so if you look at the percentages over the last 10 years, there can be a lot of fluctuation year to year. But historically, the overall averages of rent for corn and soybean acres doesn't change that much when you look at the 10-year average as we've gone over the last few years. And so we see fluctuations year to year, but long term, those 10-year averages actually are pretty stable. So it's just something to consider when looking at a flexible lease as opposed to a cash rent, which we often see kind of lagging behind what current profitability trends are, that a flexible lease would kind of move with the market. Upcoming changes I wanted to highlight are potential information on the 2024 Farm Bill decisions. So we know that the Farm Bill has been extended, that programs will be the same, but this dedicated page for Farm Bill information includes decision tools to project payments, and we update those as soon as data for the current year is available from the FSA. And then also it provides historical payment data for Iowa by county and by program, looking at Ark County and PLC. So as we get closer to those decisions, I would encourage you to keep an eye on this page for new information. We update these tools every time new price projections from USDA are released. If there's new yield data specific to the Farm Bill programs, we have a couple videos looking at last year's decisions, which a lot of that is still relevant if you just kind of need to get familiar with those programs again. And so this is a really good landing page for that information. And I like to share just a little bit of background. I think it's kind of interesting to look at what decisions have been made. And so, how has that changed? Will we might see a change between that sign up for this year. And so, the current Farm Bill, looking at 2023, the Ark County program has over 86% of base acres in the state fall under Ark County, and then just under 14% were signed up under PLC. And you can kind of see, corn has the most base acres within the state, but we do have some variation in some other crops, base acres in the state that you might not be aware of. But we also have data that I don't know if people realize is available, but I find interesting is that they do post, FSA does share what the sign up is, acres, base acres within by the county level. And so just wanted to highlight where the most acres have been based on that ARC CO program, that ARC County program. And then Mitchell and Scott counties were the highest that moved base acres into the PLC program. So. And then it was Harrison and Union that have the highest percent in ARC-CO. And I have that same data for soybean base acres. The highest sign up there for soybean base acres were Webster and Benton. And then the two counties with the highest PLC sign up were Worth and Bremer. And so just kind of interesting to see how that varies across the state, that there isn't one program kind of that's the same across the state. So just something to consider, that what the person next to you decides on these programs might not be the right decision for you. And so to make sure that you kind of make that analysis every year to choose the best option. Then just to switch topics just a little bit, again, on new and upcoming information, carbon markets are something that people might not be overly familiar with, but maybe want to learn more on. And so we have a page dedicated to carbon market information. And again, as new information becomes available, there's a really unique publication. It's that How to Grow and Sell Carbon Markets. And it's the very first publication on that page that has several tables comparing current market programs available and then compares them across multiple factors. And so it's something that I don't think is available anywhere else. We've never seen a publication that pulls these all together and really looks at how do they compare? Can you stack payments? What agronomic help is available? What's the sign up process? Really good resource for all of that if you're new to this realm of carbon markets. And I think a lot of people are, right? Because participation in carbon markets is fairly limited. And it's really important for anyone signing a contract to have as much information available to them as possible. Recent data on this table shows that's from the Land Ownership and Tenure Survey. Responses are mixed across those who are interested in the programs, those who have not heard of these programs or have little information about what these carbon market programs are. And so I encourage you, if you are interested or know somebody who is interested in learning more about the carbon credit programs, to start with that Ag Decision Maker website. And it's one of those hot topics that's always linked from the left-hand side of the page. So just as we start to wrap up, when it comes to farm management information, we're aware we can't cover it all. Every state kind of has their unique focus. Within Iowa State University, we have wonderful extension specialists in all these areas of agriculture and natural resources, and our agronomy, our livestock engineering, dairy, right? But we also have resources available from other universities and centers that we like to pull in when we know that it's good, valuable information. And so these include the University of Wisconsin is a great resource for some information. The University of Minnesota with the Center for Farm Financial Management. It's a great resource for some benchmark financial data. It's a great database they have there. The University of Illinois with FarmDoc has some policy information. And Kansas State University is always where I go if I want to get a little more detail on perhaps family cost of living. And so just know that we have some really good resources that other states come to us for. and sometimes I'll refer to another state as well. So if I get a question, especially sometimes I get questions from other states, and that person is looking for resources within their state. So to know what we have as well as what else is available, so I can direct you or another person to, all of our resources as well as what else to help them make the best decisions possible. Then another program that I do want to highlight, I think is really important that really connects with Egg Decision Maker, is our Farm Financial Planning Program. And if you're unaware, this program actually began in the 1980s and has been continued on by Iowa State University. It provides one on one financial counseling with a trained expert using financial software from the Center for Farm Financial Management out of the University of Minnesota. That software is called FinPac, if you've heard of it before. And so, should you or someone you know have farm financial difficulties, or maybe be looking at making a change to your operation, possibly adding in another generation, retiring, changing the enterprises on their farm. Perhaps you've always had livestock and you're looking at if you're maybe getting older and looking at passing that on to another generation, just that enterprise. Like these are all possibilities where talking with one of these individuals could be a good possibility for you. And so they can take your known financial information and then create projections on taking those potential changes into account. That it is a confidential service. It's at no cost. And so through the website, you can find more information about the program and then find contact information where you can contact those financial associates directly. And they're scattered across the state. There are some gaps, and so they're willing to meet with people, um, you know, online, via phone or meet somewhere in the middle. And so those are all possibilities if there isn't one near you. And most often, I will say that this program has been used when there are concerns about the farm's finances. And so there is a dedicated page that has some additional resources if it's specific to some financial concerns. And associates can't fix an unfixable problem. If it's too far gone, they might not be able to fix the situation, but they might be able to highlight some of the reasons, maybe find some ways to at least improve what's going on, or refer to additional resources. And so that's another possibility. And Egg Decision Maker content would not be possible without the support of the entire Iowa State University Extension Farm Management team. We pull in resources from other states too in our newsletters, sometimes other experts, pull in other experts within our A&R family. And so if you have specific questions, I or any of these individuals listed on this page are available to help. And if they might not have the answer, they at least can help you get to the next step. And so just know that there are resources available. With that, I really appreciate you watching this session of the Crops TV series. I thank them for having me join this year's series. And so I encourage you to please contact me directly should you have any specific questions on Egg Decision Maker, or if you have a farm management question and you aren't sure where to go with it, I can at least help you get to the next best expert. And so, again, I'll encourage you to follow along, join our email list to receive information, or follow our Twitter or blog posts. Thank you.